I'm carrying another man's child, cried the fat widow. Her voice trembles in the rain as her old car dies on a lonely highway. She's cold, stranded, and months pregnant when the roar of a motorcycle cuts through the storm. He's the last man anyone would expect to stop for her. A tattooed biker, a former outlaw with a past darker than the road he rides. But when he takes off his jacket and offers her shelter, something in both of them begins to change. Everyone in town whispers. Why would a Hell's Angel protect a woman like her? They say she's shamed. They say he's dangerous. But behind those rumors lies a truth neither of them can escape. He's fighting for redemption, and she's fighting to believe she still deserves it. When the law turns against them, and her baby's life hangs by a thread. Can a man once called Reaper save a woman the world's already condemned? Or will the past destroy them both before love gets a chance to live? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The rain came down hard, turning the Montana highway into a river of gray water. Callie Winters gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles pale as bone. Her old green station wagon groaned with every mile. The windshield wipers fought to keep up, squeaking back and forth like they were ready to give up, just like she was. Her stomach tightened again, not from hunger, but from the baby inside her. The child shifted, kicking softly. Callie pressed a hand against her belly and whispered, "Hold on, sweetheart. Mama's trying." She had been driving for hours, chasing a town she wasn't sure even existed anymore, a place she might find work, maybe a kind face. But kindness had been rare lately. Every time someone saw her swollen belly and her worn-out body, their smiles turned to pity or judgment. The car shuddered, coughed, and died. No, not now," she said, turning the key. The engine clicked uselessly. She tried again. Nothing. The rain grew heavier, pounding against the roof. She sat back in the driver's seat, heart racing, and stared out at the empty road. No houses, no lights, just endless pine trees and the sound of thunder rolling through the mountains. She felt the tears building before she could stop them. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "God, I can't." For a moment she thought about praying, but the words wouldn't come. It had been so long since she believed anyone was listening. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by the deep growl of thunder, and then she heard another sound. A low, rumbling engine growing louder through the rain. Callie froze. Headlights cut through the storm. A motorcycle. Her pulse quickened. A biker out here? Fear clawed at her chest. She thought of every warning she'd ever heard about men on motorcycles. Dangerous, wild, lawless. She wiped her tears quickly, trying to look brave as the bike slowed beside her. The rider dismounted, black leather jacket glistening with rain, a chain hanging from his belt. His beard was short, his face marked by hard years. He pulled off his helmet, and water ran down the tattoos on his neck. "You all right, ma'am?" His voice was deep, rough around the edges, but steady. Callie opened her mouth, but only a sob came out. He stepped closer, careful not to startle her. "You need a hand?" She nodded, swallowing hard. "The car. It just quit." He crouched beside the hood, lifted it, and stared into the smoking engine. Rainwater hissed against the metal. "You're out of luck. Battery's gone and this engine looks tired." "I don't have money to fix it," she said softly. "I was just trying to get to Willow Creek. Thought maybe someone there." He glanced up at her, his eyes a mix of steel and something gentler. "You got somewhere safe to go?" She hesitated. "Not really." He nodded slowly. "There's a diner a few miles ahead. Warm, dry. You can ride with me." Her heart jumped. Ride. With you? He shrugged. Ain't got another option, unless you plan on sleeping in the rain. Callie looked at her swollen belly, and then at his motorcycle. I can't, she whispered. I can see that, he said, his voice low. But it's better than freezing out here. She stared at the rain sliding down the windshield. Every part of her wanted to say no, but the baby kicked again, a reminder that fear couldn't be her master forever. She opened the door slowly and stepped into the storm. Her shoes sank into mud, and her hair stuck to her face. He reached out a hand, not forceful, just steady, and helped her balance as she climbed onto the back of the bike. Hold on tight, he said. She hesitated. Wait, who are you? He paused for a beat, then said, Just someone who's seen enough storms. The motorcycle roared to life, and they took off down the highway. Rain stung her face, and she buried her head against his back, clutching the edges of his jacket. The scent of leather and rain mixed with gasoline and wind. She felt strangely safe. The miles blurred together until the glow of neon lights broke through the darkness. A weathered sign that read, Roscoe's Diner. He parked beside it, water dripping from the bike, and helped her off carefully. Go inside. Warm up, he said, his tone more command than suggestion. She stepped through the door, blinking at the sudden warmth and light. Inside, a few rough-looking men sat at tables, tattoos crawling up their arms. They turned when she entered, eyes curious. Who's the Lady Reaper? One of them asked. The biker followed her in, removing his gloves. She's someone who needed help, he said flatly. Reaper? Callie repeated softly. That's what they call me, he said. Name's Jax. A big man behind the counter chuckled. You bringin' strays now, boss? Shut it, Roscoe, Jax said. Get her some coffee and food. Roscoe grinned, but obeyed. Sure thing. Callie sat down, feeling everyone's eyes on her. When Roscoe placed a steaming cup in front of her, she wrapped both hands around it like it was the only warmth in the world. After a while, the men returned to their conversations. The diner filled with the hum of country music and clinking dishes. Jax sat across from her, his face calm but unreadable. Where you headed, ma'am? She stared into her cup. I don't know anymore. You running from something? She gave a sad laugh. Maybe from everything. He nodded once, not pushing. You got family? They don't want me. His jaw tightened. Why's that? Callie looked down, her throat tight. Then the words came before she could stop them. Because I'm carrying another man's child. The room went quiet. Even the music seemed to fade. Jax didn't flinch. He just studied her for a moment, then leaned back. You hungry? She blinked, confused. What? You said you don't got family, you're soaked to the bone, and you look like you haven't eaten since breakfast. So, are you hungry? Her lips trembled. Yes. Then eat, he said simply. Ain't nobody here gonna judge you. Tears filled her eyes again, and she nodded. As she ate, he stood near the counter, watching the rain outside. Something about her words stayed with him, the kind of confession that carried both shame and courage. He had seen people lie, fight, and run. But this woman? She just wanted a place to rest her soul. Later that night, when the diner emptied and Roscoe wiped down the tables, Jax told her quietly, There's a spare room in the back. Ain't much, but it's warm. I can't pay. Didn't ask you to. She hesitated. Why are you helping me? He thought for a long moment. Maybe because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. She swallowed the lump in her throat. Thank you. He nodded. Get some rest. Tomorrow will look better. She smiled weakly. You really think so? He gave a half smile. Storms don't last forever, ma'am. Not the ones outside, or the ones in here. He tapped his chest once and walked away. When she finally lay down in the small back room, the sheets smelled faintly of soap and coffee. The baby moved again, gentle this time. Callie placed a hand on her stomach. Maybe this is where things start to change, she whispered. Outside, the rain slowed, and in the quiet, for the first time in a long while, she felt safe enough to close her eyes. Morning came soft and pale, like a hand lifting the edge of a curtain. Callie woke in the small back room to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The ceiling was low. The walls were painted the color of old cream. A folded blanket lay neat at her feet, tucked there by a careful hand. The baby rolled inside her, slow and calm, as if pleased to be warm. She sat up slowly and rubbed her lower back. The mattress was thin but clean. Someone had left a towel and a plain gray t-shirt on a chair with a small bar of soap. She touched the shirt, surprised by the simple kindness. The night before felt like a dream. The thunder, the broken car, the motorcycle, the man with the hard face and steady voice. Water ran in the pipes beyond the wall. Pots clanged somewhere out front. She washed at the tiny sink and brushed her hair with her fingers. In the mirror, her face looked puffy from sleep, her eyes rimmed red, but less afraid. She whispered to her belly, "We're okay. Just for today, we're okay." She eased the door open and stepped into the hallway. The diner's kitchen sat just ahead, bright with steam and light. The big man from last night stood at the grill, flipping pancakes with quick wrists. He turned and grinned. "Morning, ma'am. Sleep all right?" he said. She nodded. "Yes. Thank you." "Name's Roscoe, but folks call me Bear," he said. "Coffee?" "Yes, please." He poured a full mug, set it in her hands, then slid a plate of scrambled eggs and toast onto the counter. "Eat. Doctor's orders. Well, not a real doctor. Just an old cook who knows when someone needs feeding." She smiled, small but true. "I'm Callie." Roscoe's grin widened. "Good to meet you, Callie." The front room of the diner was waking up. Sunlight fell across chrome napkin holders and a row of red stools. 3 bikers sat at a corner table, heads together, talking low. They glanced her way, then nodded like gentlemen tipping hats. Not a smirk among them. It surprised her enough that a tear gathered and clung to her lashes. She blinked it away and took a careful bite of eggs. Warm, buttery, simple. The taste felt like rest. The bell over the door jingled. Jax came in from the morning chill, a coil of cold air clinging to his jacket. He looked the same as last night. Black leather, heavy boots. But his eyes held a clearer light, the kind that comes after a storm. He gave her a quick look, a check more than a stare, like he was making sure she was all right. "You find everything?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Thank you for the room." He nodded at Roscoe, who slid him a black coffee without being asked. Jax stood there, hands around the mug, as if warming them at a campfire. "We'll tow your car off the highway this afternoon," he said. "No charge." "You don't have to," she began. "I know," he said, and his mouth twitched like a half smile. "We're doing it anyway." She took a breath and let it go. "Thank you." A pair of county deputies pushed through the door and stomped the snowmelt from their boots on the rug. The taller one scanned the room and nodded at Jax. "Maddox," he said. "Deputy," Jax replied, calm and flat. The other deputy sniffed. "Heard you took up charity work. Is that right?" His eyes slid to Callie and stayed there, weighing her, measuring her, finding her lacking. Roscoe's spatula hit the grill with a hard click. Cops eat free if they come in with manners, he said. Otherwise, menu price. The taller deputy chuckled and led the other to a booth. Just coffee, he said. And relax, Bear. Not here to make trouble. The room settled, but the air stayed tight. Callie felt the old shame tug at her like a sleeve. She lowered her gaze. Her hand slid to her stomach. She wished her body could make itself small. Jax took a sip of coffee and looked at her plainly. You got plans for today? He asked, like the deputies were no more than furniture. She shook her head. I was heading to Willow Creek. I thought I might find work there. What kind? He asked. Anything honest, she said. I used to do office work. I can type, I can cook, I can clean. Roscoe pointed the spatula at her, pleased. Can you keep a pot of chili from burning while 3 customers complain and a trucker wants his coffee hot yesterday? She laughed, and the sound surprised her. I can try. Good. We need a hand here. Breakfast rush gets busy, Roscoe said. Jax keeps wanting to run next door and build his garage. Leaves me to juggle eggs and tempers. Jax set down his cup. We can pay you for hours, he said. Not much till the garage starts moving, but enough for gas and food, and the room stays yours until you get your feet under you. She went very still. Pride lifted its head, ready to say no. But the baby turned inside her with a gentle nudge, and she thought of the road, the cold, and the locked doors she had met along the way. I would like that, she said softly. I'd like to work. Then that's settled, Roscoe said. Apron's on the hook. You eat first. Let me pay for breakfast, she said. Please. Jax's gaze flicked toward the deputies, then back to her. You can pay by breathing easier, he said. We'll settle the rest as we go. She nodded and finished the eggs, each bite steadying her. By the time she wiped her mouth and tied the apron around her waist, the early rush had begun. 2 loggers in flannel ordered stacks of pancakes. A woman with a baby carrier asked for oatmeal with extra milk. The deputies wanted refills. Callie moved with care, but learned fast. Pour, smile, wipe, check the coffee level before it ran low. The floor warmed under her feet. Small thank yous clicked into place, like beads on a string. At mid-morning, when the sun sharpened and cast crisp blue shadows on the snowbanks outside, the door opened again. A woman in a stiff gray coat walked in with purpose. Her hair was pinned tight, her mouth set in a line that said she had never told a joke and regretted none. She looked around, spotted Callie, and marched straight to the counter. You're the one, she said. Callie stiffened. I'm sorry. You were at the motel on Route 6 last week, the woman said. Room 12. You asked to use the laundry. I told you it was for guests only, and you left. Callie kept her voice even. Yes, ma'am. You didn't say you were... The woman flicked her eyes at Callie's belly. In that condition. Callie laid a hand on the counter. I'm sorry for the trouble I caused. The woman sniffed and looked at Jax. You shouldn't keep her here. It gives the wrong idea. Jax's face did not change. What idea is that? That this place welcomes sin, she said. Roscoe set the spatula down. The corner table of bikers went quiet. Even the deputies turned to listen. Jax set his coffee aside and leaned on his hands. This place welcomes people, he said. Hungry ones, tired ones, ones who made mistakes, ones who got hurt. That's the idea. The woman's nostrils flared. Men like you always talk big, she said, but you leave a trail behind you. We all know what you are, Mr. Maddox. And what's that? He asked, voice calm. An outlaw, she said, and outlaws don't change. Callie's face burned. Her shame rose like heat from a stove. She heard again the whispers from her old town. She saw the look on her late husband's mother's face when she said, "You will not bring that child into our home." She swallowed hard and found herself speaking before she could stop. "Ma'am," she said, "I don't pretend to be anything but a woman who made a mess of things. I am sorry for the pain I caused people. But I am also carrying a child who did nothing wrong. I will work. I will live quiet. I will not be a shame on this place." The woman blinked, taken aback by the gentle strength in Callie's voice, then lifted her chin. "God judges," she said, and turned on her heel. "Good thing neither of us is God," Roscoe muttered. She left, the bell jingling behind her, and the diner exhaled. Jax's jaw loosened. Roscoe picked up his spatula again and flipped a pancake with force. The taller deputy spoke toward his coffee. "Maddox," he said, "you keep your nose clean, you won't hear from us. But if trouble shows up, it shows up," Jax finished. "I know." They left bills on the table and walked out. The sunlight poured back in, bright as mercy. During the lull, Callie stood at the sink and washed mugs while Roscoe dried. Water steamed in the cold air that crept around the window frame. She felt shaky but steady, the way a person feels after climbing a hard hill. "You handled that well," Roscoe said. "I didn't," she said with a small laugh. "But thank you for saying so." "People who judge loudest are often hiding something," he said. "The rest are just scared." She nodded and looked toward the garage next door through the window. The building stood like a promise not yet kept. Big roll-up doors, faded white paint, letters half peeled from an old sign. "He wants to open that place for veterans," she said. "Been his dream since before he got quiet," Roscoe said. "He used to laugh more. He doesn't anymore. Not much." "Because of his brother," she said softly. Roscoe's eyes flicked to her, surprised. "He told you?" She shook her head. "He didn't have to. I hear things. I know the sound of pain that doesn't have a place to go." Roscoe nodded once, like that made good sense. "You sing?" he asked, as if changing the subject. She blinked. "A little. Why?" "Jax's brother loved a hymn. We used to play it after closing when times were rough," Roscoe said. He hummed a bar of "Abide With Me," off-key but earnest. Callie's face softened. Her late husband had loved the same song. "I know it," she whispered. "I sang it the night he shipped out." Roscoe set the towel down and rested a hand on the counter. "You and Jax carry the same kind of weight," he said. "Different stories. Same ache." The lunch crowd drifted in. Teachers with sack lunches who wanted pie, a mail carrier with wind-burned cheeks, 2 teenagers whose laughter bounced off the glass. Callie kept moving. When her back ached, she leaned against the counter and stretched. When her feet throbbed, she refilled water glasses and focused on the small smiles that greeted her. A little boy in a blue hat waved at her. She waved back and slipped him an extra cherry for his soda. His mother pretended not to see and mouthed, "Thank you." Around 2, the rush thinned. Roscoe sent her to sit for 10 minutes, by order of the kitchen. She took her coffee to a booth by the window. Snowmelt had made dirty streams along the curb. Sunlight flashed on the wet street. Across the lot, Jax stood by the garage door with a clipboard, talking with a tall, red-headed man who wore a prosthetic leg and a denim jacket. They shook hands. The red-headed man laughed, easy and loud, and slapped Jax on the shoulder. Jax didn't laugh, but he smiled a little, and it looked like a crack in a wall where light had finally found a way in. When she rose to return to work, Jax came in, cheeks flushed from the cold. "We're heading out to get your car," he said. "Me and Red. Won't take long." "You don't?" He held up a hand. "We're going," he said gently. "Besides, if we leave it there, someone will strip it. Then you'll be really stuck. She nodded, cheeks warm. Thank you. He paused. You did good today, he said. She felt the strange burn of proud tears. I didn't drop anything. You kept your head, he said. That's rarer than steady hands. He left, and the diner hummed on. Time stretched and folded. Afternoon slid toward evening. The smell of onions and grilled beef filled the room. When Jax returned with Red, the Athos station wagon sat in the lot, humped and sad but home. Toe strap held, Red said, grinning. She's ugly, but a fighter. Callie stepped out onto the porch in her coat and touched the hood like it was a sleeping animal. Thank you, she said. We'll take a look under the hood tomorrow, Jax said. See what we can save. No promises. I understand, she said. Red tipped 2 fingers off his brow. Name's Red, he said. Good to meet you proper. Don't let Maddox scare you. He only eats nails for breakfast on Mondays. She laughed. Nice to meet you. She looked to Jax. I can pay you back. It might take time, but I will. He met her eyes. We aren't keeping score, he said. Not here. Dinner came and went, steady as a drumbeat. A young couple took a booth and held hands. 2 mechanics came from a shop on the other side of town and argued about carburetors and football. The bikers told a quiet joke that made Roscoe snort so hard he had to pretend the grill smoked more than it did. Near closing, the bell jingled again. The pastor's wife from earlier did not return, but gossip traveled faster than trucks. 2 women from the church sat at the counter and pretended to study the menu while their voices ran low with sharp edges. Callie caught words: shame, widow, biker, and then a soft, poor baby. She kept her smile where it belonged and poured their coffee without spilling a drop. When she turned away, her hand shook. She steadied it on the edge of the counter, breathed slow, and looked towards the back hallway where the little room waited. Jax leaned beside the pie case, watching the gossip float and sink like crumbs in a glass. He didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. When the women asked for the check, he rang it up and said, You're welcome back any time. All we ask is kindness. They flushed and left a small tip. Roscoe collected it, slipped $1 more beside it, and said nothing. The day finally eased its shoulders. Chairs stood on tables. Floors squeaked under a damp mop. Callie wiped the last chrome handle until it shone like a small moon. Her feet ached in a full, good way. She carried a plate of stew to the back, the meat tender from hours on the stove, and ate while sitting on the step by the walk-in cooler. Each bite warmed her from the inside out. The baby shifted, then settled. She laid a hand over the movement and smiled. Jax walked past with a bucket of soapy water and set it down. For a moment he stood there like he was looking for a word that didn't exist. Then he sat on the step across from her, elbows on knees. You did a full day, he said. I did, she replied, a little proud. You can keep the room as long as you need, he said. We'll figure the hours week to week. No pressure? Thank you, she said. She looked at her hands. That woman this morning. People have said worse, but it still hurts. I know, he said. He didn't rush to fill the silence. He let it rest between them like a blanket shared by 2 people who both needed warmth. My husband's mother told me I broke their son's memory, she said after a moment. She said my belly proved it. Jax looked down at his hands, the scars pale against tan skin. My mother told me I broke her heart the day I drove drunk, he said. She wasn't wrong. Callie's eyes lifted. I'm sorry. So am I, he said. Sorry don't change the past, but it keeps you from lying about it. She nodded. The cooler hummed behind them. Somewhere outside, a train moaned its long, sad horn, and the sound traveled over the snowy fields like a hand brushing the top of wheat. "Roscoe says you want to open the garage," she said. "I do," he said. "For veterans who can't catch a break. For single moms who need a brake job and a little gas. We got the tools. We got the know-how. Maybe it's time to use it for good." "That sounds like church," she said. "It ain't," he said, but his mouth tipped at one corner. "But maybe it's close." She finished her stew and set the empty plate on the step. "I can help with flyers," she said. "I used to make them for the school where I worked. Fundraisers, car washes, bingo nights." "All right," he said. "We'll start tomorrow." They stood. He picked up the bucket and took it to the sink. She washed the plate, dried it, and turned off the warmer lights. The diner fell into a soft glow. At the back door, the night air met them cool and clean. The lot shone with thin ice in the low places, like glass spilled across the ground. The station wagon sat near the garage. Quiet now, a stubborn beast at rest. Jax looked at it for a long moment, then at the sky. Stars pricked through the last thin clouds. "You ever fix cars at night?" she asked, half a joke. "Sometimes," he said, voice low. "Sometimes when the noise in my head gets too busy." "Maybe the car will help then," she said. He huffed a laugh. "Maybe." They said goodnight by the hallway. She went into her small room and closed the door. It felt safer than last night. The fear still sat in her, the old kind that doesn't leave in a day, but it didn't sit alone anymore. Work and faces and simple kindness filled the empty places like warm light. She brushed her hair and pulled the gray t-shirt over her head. She folded her dress on the chair. Then she turned off the lamp and lay down. The baby turned again, slow and steady, like a boat drifting to shore. In the quiet, she heard a soft sound from outside, the scrape of a hood latch, the click of tools, the low murmur of a man talking to himself. Jax had gone to her car, it seemed, to look under the hood by moonlight. The sound made her throat tighten. She pressed a hand over her heart and blinked at the dark. "Thank you," she whispered. To the room, to the baby, to God if he was listening, to the man, outside, who kept finding small ways to show mercy. Her eyes closed. Sleep came, heavy and sweet. Outside, Jax tightened a loose cable and wiped his hands on a rag. He stared at the old engine like it might confess its secrets if he was patient. In his mind, he heard his brother's laugh, a soft echo that still hurt. He set the wrench down and rested both hands on the fender. "Tomorrow," he said to the car, to the cold air, to himself. "We keep going tomorrow." The stars burned a little brighter. The diner stood quiet, a small, warm box at the edge of a wide, hard world. And for this one night, the storm had passed. The next morning dawned bright and gold over the diner. The storm had passed completely, leaving puddles that mirrored the pale blue sky. A truck rolled by, its tires whispering over wet gravel. From her small room in the back, Callie could hear Roscoe singing badly over the clatter of pots, the kind of off-key rumble that meant the day was starting. She pushed herself up slowly, stretching her aching back. The baby shifted again, strong now. "You're growing, little one," she murmured. "And so's Mama's courage." She smiled a little at her own words. She washed, pulled her hair into a loose braid, and put on the apron Roscoe had left for her. Faded red, one strap mended with safety pins. The smell of coffee drew her out like a promise. She stepped into the main room and found the morning sun spilling through the windows, painting golden stripes across the red booths. "Look who's up," Roscoe boomed from behind the counter. "Coffee's fresh and strong enough to wake the dead." "Then it'll do fine for me," she said, smiling. He poured a mug and handed it over. "Careful, it's hotter than gossip." She laughed softly and took a sip. It was perfect. Bitter, rich, grounding. The simple warmth made her feel human again. Jax came in from the garage next door, sleeves rolled up, grease smudged on one forearm. His dark hair was still damp from a quick rinse at the outside pump. He nodded at her. "Mornin', ma'am. You eat yet?" "Not yet," she said. "You've been working already?" "Sun's been up for hours," he said. "Your station wagon's got a bad alternator, but I'll see what I can do." She tilted her head. "You work before breakfast?" "Sometimes that's when the world's quiet enough to think." She wanted to ask what he thought about, but didn't. The look in his eyes said some thoughts were better left alone. Roscoe slid a plate of eggs and bacon toward her. "Eat while it's hot. Jax here won't sit still long enough for a meal, but you should." Jax smirked. Roscoe worries like a mother hen. "Someone has to," Roscoe said, wiping his hands on a towel. Callie ate slowly, enjoying the taste. "This is the best bacon I've had in my life," she said. "That's because it's fried in the same skillet for 20 years, Roscoe said. "Seasoned with history." The bell above the door jingled. 2 locals entered, a pair of older men with sheriff badges clipped to their belts. Callie recognized them from yesterday, the ones who had watched her a bit too closely. They nodded at Jax, half friendly, half wary. "Mornin', Maddox," said Deputy Collier. "Heard you're fixin' up that garage again." Jax's jaw worked, but his tone stayed polite. "That's right. Veterans Project." Collier sipped his coffee. "That's so. Folks still remember what used to go on in that garage. Ain't sure everyone's ready for it to come back." "It's not what it used to be," Jax said. "People change." "Do they?" Collier asked, like he didn't quite believe it. The second deputy gave Callie a quick glance. "You his new project too, miss?" Callie froze, the fork halfway to her mouth. Roscoe straightened behind the counter, eyes narrowing. "She's my employee," Jax said calmly. "That's all." The deputy smirked. "Just asking?" "Then you got your answer," Jax said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. The deputies paid for their coffee and left. The door shut behind them with a thud. Callie exhaled, only now realizing she'd been holding her breath. "Do they always talk like that?" "Some folks don't know how to stop digging up the past," Jax said. Roscoe snorted. Those two couldn't find kindness if it was taped to their coffee cups. Callie smiled weakly. "You're used to it, aren't you?" Jax shrugged. "You learn to live with people's opinions. They don't have to like me for me to do good work." His words stuck with her. As she cleared tables and refilled cups through the morning, she thought about what it meant to keep trying when no one believed you could change. Maybe that was courage. Quiet, everyday courage. Around noon, the lunch rush came in. Truckers, road workers, a few older women from town. Callie moved easily now, refilling coffee, chatting, and even teasing Roscoe when he burned a grilled cheese. A teenage girl came in, handing out flyers. "Church supper next weekend," she chirped, placing one on each table. When she reached Callie, her bright expression faltered. Her gaze dropped to Callie's belly, and the girl blushed. "Oh, sorry." "It's all right," Callie said softly, taking the flyer. "Thank you." After the girl left, Callie glanced at it. Community potluck. All welcome? The words made her heart ache. She couldn't remember the last time she felt welcome anywhere. By evening, the diner had quieted. Callie wiped down the last table, humming under her breath. The tune was faint. "Abide with me." the hymn her husband had loved. The same one Roscoe mentioned the night before. When she finished, she turned to find Jax standing in the doorway between the diner and garage, hands in his pockets. "That song," he said. "You sing it real soft." She flushed. "I'm sorry. Habit." "Don't be sorry," he said. "My brother used to sing that one before a ride. Guess it's been a while since I heard it." "I'm sorry about your brother," she said quietly. He looked down, jaw tightening. "Yeah, me too." They stood in silence for a long moment. Outside, the sun dipped low, turning the snow pink. Finally, Callie said, "You're trying to build something new, aren't you? With that garage?" "Trying," he said. "World don't make it easy for men with records." "Maybe the world doesn't make it easy for anyone trying to start over," she said softly. He met her eyes. "You sound like someone who knows." She smiled sadly. "Maybe I do." He nodded once and turned toward the garage. "We'll get your car running tomorrow. That'll be a start." "Thank you," she said again. "Stop thanking me," he said, almost smiling. "I told you, storms pass." After he left, she stood by the window for a long time, watching the garage lights flicker on next door. Snowflakes began to fall again, light and slow, like feathers from heaven. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered, "Maybe this time, they'll stay gone." She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that, for the first time in a long while, she wasn't facing it alone. And somewhere outside, the sound of a wrench turning echoed through the quiet, steady, patient, and full of hope. 3 days passed, and life at the diner settled into a steady rhythm. Morning sunlight always came first, sliding across the counter before the coffee had finished brewing. Roscoe's laughter filled the air by mid-morning, and by noon the place smelled of butter and toast. For Callie, each sunrise felt like a promise, fragile but real. She had learned the pace of the diner quickly. She knew which truckers liked 2 sugars in their coffee, which farmers preferred black. She remembered who liked extra napkins and who always ordered pie. No matter the flavor, long as it's sweet. Roscoe teased her that she had the kind of heart that fed people twice, once with food, once with kindness. Jack spent most of his time next door in the garage, working with Big Red to clear out old junk and set up tools. Every few hours, he would step into the diner for coffee, sometimes just to make sure Callie was doing all right. He didn't say much, but when he did, his words landed heavy with care. By the 4th morning, her hands moved on instinct. Pour, smile, wipe, refill. The ache in her back had dulled to something manageable. She no longer jumped every time the diner bell jingled. The baby kicked stronger now, and each flutter reminded her why she kept going. But good days, she was learning, rarely lasted long without someone trying to spoil them. That afternoon, a group of local women came in. 3 of them dressed neatly, their hair sprayed stiff, each carrying the faint air of gossip. They sat in a booth near the window and ordered salads. Callie recognized one of them, Mrs. Wade, the sheriff's wife. She smiled politely as she took their orders, trying not to notice their lingering glances. "She's the one staying in the back," one woman whispered, not quite quiet enough. "The fat widow." "Carrying another man's baby," another replied. "And working for him? Mercy. Her husband died a hero," Mrs. Wade said softly, "and she ends up with a biker." Callie's face flushed. Her hands trembled so badly she almost spilled a glass of tea. She turned away, forcing her breathing to slow. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry over small minds, but it still hurt. Roscoe noticed. He came over, his broad shape blocking the view between the women and Callie. "Y'all need anything else?" he asked in a tone that meant don't push it. They smiled too wide. No, thank you, Roscoe, one of them said. We're fine. He leaned close enough that only Callie could hear him. Ignore him. Folks in this town got more opinions than teeth. She smiled weakly. I'm trying. Later, when the lunch rush died down, she stepped outside for a breath of air. The sky was crisp and blue, the kind that made the snow sparkle like crushed glass. She wrapped her coat around herself and leaned against the diner wall. She heard footsteps behind her. You okay? Jack stood there, hands in his jacket pockets. His breath came out in small clouds. She tried to smile. Just needed a minute. He nodded slowly. I heard what they said. Her throat tightened. I guess I should get used to it. Don't, he said. You didn't do anything wrong. They don't see it that way. Then they ain't worth worrying about. She looked at him, studying the quiet strength in his face. You sound like you've had practice. He gave a small, rueful grin. You get a lot of practice when the whole world's waiting for you to fail. Something inside her softened. Do you ever wish you could just start over? Somewhere no one knows your name? He glanced toward the mountains, their snowy peaks glowing gold in the afternoon light. All the time, he said, but I figured out starting over ain't about running away. It's about staying long enough to make something right. Her eyes stung, and she nodded. I wish I believed that. He looked back at her. Stick around, Callie. You might. They stood in the cold for a few quiet moments before Roscoe hollered from inside. Hey, lovebirds. Who's making coffee while you're out there solving the world's problems? Callie flushed. We're not, Jax chuckled. Don't mind him. He's all mouth. When she went back inside, something in her felt lighter. Not healed, but mending. That evening, as the sky turned violet and the last customers left, Jax sat at the counter going over some notes for the garage. Callie wiped down the tables and stacked napkin holders. Roscoe counted the cash drawer in the back. After a long silence, Callie spoke softly. Do you ever miss your brother? Jax looked up slowly. Every day. What was he like? He stared at his hands. He was better than me. Smarter, kinder. I was always the wild one. He joined the army to make my mom proud. I joined the Angels to prove I didn't care. She stopped wiping the counter. And when he nodded. Yeah, my fault. I was drunk. I was supposed to pick him up that night. He took his bike instead. The words hung heavy between them. I'm sorry, she whispered. He gave a slow nod. I used to think the world ended that night. Now I'm starting to wonder if maybe it was just the old me that ended. Callie's voice was soft. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what matters. He looked up at her and said quietly, Maybe that's true. She smiled faintly. You've been good to me, Jax. You didn't have to be. I didn't do anything special, he said. You just needed someone to believe you weren't a lost cause. So did I. Her eyes filled with tears. She turned quickly, pretending to arrange the chairs. Roscoe came out, breaking the silence. We're low on potatoes. I'm making a run to the store before they close. Need anything? Coffee, Jax said. More napkins, Callie added. Roscoe pointed at both of them. Don't burn the place down while I'm gone. After he left, the diner felt strangely still. Outside, the wind howled through the trees again, like it had the night she'd arrived. Jax sipped his coffee. You ever think about what you'll do after the baby's born? I don't know, she said honestly. Find work. Maybe a small place of my own. Try to raise the baby right. You'll need help. She gave a little smile. You offering? He shrugged. Maybe. Then, after a pause, that kid's gonna need people who believe in second chances. She looked at him. and the silence between them felt less lonely. By the weekend, the whispers in town had spread faster than the snowmelt. Some said the biker was hiding his girlfriend. Others said she was his cousin, or a convict, or worse. But for every cruel whisper, a few kind faces began to show up at the diner. Folks who didn't care what people said. A schoolteacher came for pie and left a note that said, "Keep singing, you have a gift." Jax's garage started to take shape. Red painted the door frames while Jax built workbenches. Callie helped type up donation flyers using the diner's old computer. The words came easy. Faith Garage, for veterans, single mothers, and anyone in need of a hand. When she printed the first copy, Jax read it over and smiled. "You did this?" "Just the words," she said. He nodded. "They're good words." She looked at the flyer again, her voice soft. Maybe God hasn't given up on me after all." He folded the paper carefully. "He never did. You just stopped looking for him." Her throat tightened, and she turned away to hide her tears. That night, when the diner closed and the sky turned black over the mountains, Callie sat alone in her small room. The day's gossip had stung, but she could still feel the kindness that had followed. The way Jax defended her. The way Roscoe pretended not to notice her tears. The note from the teacher. For the first time in months, she knelt beside her bed. Her knees ached on the hard floor, but she stayed there, whispering, "Thank you for keeping me safe, and for sending someone who doesn't see me as a mistake." Outside, the garage light glowed late into the night. Jax worked with steady hands, building something more than a workshop, building a future neither of them could have imagined just a week ago. And somewhere deep in her chest, Callie began to believe that maybe grace wasn't something you had to earn. Maybe it was something you just had to stop running from. The first real warmth of spring crept over Montana a week later, melting the snow into muddy rivers that ran along the roadside. The diner's sign buzzed in the bright air, and beside it, Jax's half-finished garage stood wide open, sunlight spilling through the dusty windows. The smell of oil and sawdust mixed with the faint scent of pancakes drifting from Roscoe's kitchen. Callie stood in the doorway, hands folded over her belly, watching Jax work. He had stripped off his jacket, sleeves rolled to the elbow, his forearms streaked with grease. Big Red was beside him, steadying a metal beam with his good arm, his prosthetic leg planted firm on the ground. Together they moved like men who had built and rebuilt 100 things before. "You sure you're okay to lift that?" Callie called. Red grinned. "Darlin', this leg's stronger than the one God gave me. Watch this." Jax smirked, tightening the bolt until the beam clicked into place. "You talk too much," he said. "And you don't talk enough," Red shot back. Their banter made Callie smile. She had spent the morning helping Roscoe with breakfast, then printed more flyers for the new sign. Faith Garage, repairs for veterans, single mothers, and anyone in need. The simple words gave her chills every time she read them. When Jax caught her watching, he wiped his hands on a rag and walked over. "You eat yet?" "Roscoe made me," she said. 3 pancakes. Said I need to feed the baby so it don't come out mad." A ghost of a grin touched his face. "Sounds like Roscoe." She looked past him at the open garage. "It's really coming together. I didn't think you'd get it ready this fast." "I had help," he said, nodding toward Red, "and something to prove." "To who?" He looked away. "Myself, mostly." For a while they stood side by side, watching Red test the new hydraulic lift. The hum of the motor filled the air. "Place like this could change lives," Callie said quietly. "Maybe," Jax said, "if the town lets it." "They will," she said, though her voice trembled a little. "People always talk first, then they see." He studied her face. You believe that? I have to, she said. If I don't, I'll start running again, and I promised the baby I'd stop. He nodded slowly. Then we'll make him see. By mid-afternoon, the three of them had cleared most of the garage. Jax set up a row of old tool chests while Red repainted the front door white. Callie brought lemonade from the diner, her steps careful over the gravel. Look at us, Red said, taking a drink. One-legged vet, reformed outlaw, and a pregnant angel building a future. That's gotta make heaven smile. Or shake its head, Jax said. Callie laughed. Maybe both. For a few sweet minutes, the world felt right, like all the broken pieces of their lives had somehow landed in the same place for a reason. But small towns, she knew, had long memories. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, the sound of tires crunched on gravel. A sheriff's cruiser rolled up, headlights washing over the new sign. Sheriff Wade stepped out, hat low, face unreadable. Evenin' Maddox, he said. Sheriff, Jax replied evenly. Wade's eyes scanned the sign, then the garage, then lingered on Callie. Heard you're running a charity shop here. Just fixing cars, Jax said. Last time you said that, you were running stolen bikes. Callie stiffened, but Jax didn't flinch. That was a lifetime ago. Maybe for you, the sheriff said, but this town remembers. Be smart, Maddox. Don't give folks another reason to doubt you. He tipped his hat to Callie, eyes softening only slightly. Ma'am. Then he turned and drove off. The sound of his tires faded into the dusk. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Red muttered, That man's got a memory longer than winter. Jax exhaled slowly. He's not wrong. I did mess up before, but this time's different. Callie stepped closer. Then show them. Let them see who you are now. He met her eyes, something unspoken passing between them. Respect, maybe even trust. You really think I can? She smiled softly. I know you can. That night, the diner glowed warm against the dark. Roscoe locked the doors, humming off-key as always. Callie sat in the back booth, tired but peaceful, the baby fluttering beneath her palm. Through the window she could see Jax, still in the garage, working by lamplight. He moved with quiet purpose, tightening bolts, wiping grease, stepping back to admire his progress. There was a light in his face she hadn't seen before. Not hardness, but hope. For the first time, Callie realized something deep in her chest had begun to heal. Not just because of Jax or the safety he offered, but because she was finally building something too. A life. A place to belong. She whispered, "Thank you," to no one and everyone, then turned off the diner light. Outside, the sign over the garage gleamed softly in the dark. Faith Garage. And for the first time in years, both of them believed the word painted there might just be true. The rain returned that night, soft at first, then steady and cold. The diner windows fogged up, glowing in the dark like lanterns. Callie wiped the counter for the last time and turned the open sign to closed. Roscoe had gone home early, and Big Red had promised to check on the garage locks before turning in. The place was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Callie loved that sound. It reminded her she wasn't alone anymore. But outside, the wind began to howl, and thunder rolled far off in the hills. Jax came in through the back door, shaking the rain from his jacket. His hair was damp, his boots leaving muddy prints on the floor. "Storm's moving in fast," he said. She smiled faintly. "Seems like storms follow you, Jax." He gave a low laugh. "Maybe they just know where the fight is." She poured him a cup of coffee. He took it, his large hands wrapping around the mug. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick but calm, like the pause before lightning strikes. "I saw the sheriff talking to you earlier," she said. "What did he want?" "Same thing he always wants," Jax said. "To remind me what I used to be." She frowned. "And what are you now?" He looked at her then. Really looked. "Trying to be a man who doesn't run from the truth anymore." She nodded slowly. "That sounds like a good man to me." Rain pattered harder against the windows. The lights flickered once. Jax set his cup down and leaned on the counter. "You ever get tired of being judged?" "All the time," she said. "But I decided their words can't feed my baby, so I stopped letting them starve me." He smiled a little. "You got more fight in you than you think." Silence filled the room again, deep and easy. Callie found herself staring at the faint scar on his hand, wondering what stories it held. She wanted to ask, but didn't. Some stories were sacred. Outside, thunder cracked like a whip. She jumped, and Jax's hand brushed hers by accident. Or maybe not. "You're safe here," he said softly. Her voice trembled. "I know." Something fragile lingered between them, half comfort, half something else. But she broke it with a laugh that was more nervous than light. "Guess I should turn in before the power goes out." "Yeah," he said. "Roscoe'd have my hide if you slipped on a wet floor." She smiled, heading toward the hallway. "Good night, Jax." "Night, Callie." He watched her disappear into the back room, her soft footsteps fading away. When the last light clicked off, he turned back to the way, Rain. His reflection stared at him from the dark window, half man, half memory. "Storms don't last forever," he murmured to himself, "but ghosts sure do." He stayed there long after the thunder passed, listening to the rain beat against the roof, trying to quiet the ghosts that still rode with him through every sleepless night. The morning of the rally dawned bright and clear, the kind of day that made Montana's sky look endless. Jax stood outside the diner, hands on his hips, staring at the freshly painted sign over the garage. Faith Garage. The letters glimmered in the sunlight, and for once, he felt proud. Inside, Callie was tying ribbons to jars of lemonade. Her apron was dusted with flour, her cheeks pink from the morning rush. She had baked 6 pies and made 2 trays of cornbread, and still found time to hum while she worked. "You sure this'll bring folks in?" she asked, as Jax came in. "Free food always does," he said, smiling faintly. By noon, the gravel lot filled with people. Veterans in worn jackets, families with kids, even a few bikers from Jax's old crew who had cleaned up for the day. Red had set up a grill, and Roscoe ran back and forth carrying trays of burgers. The air buzzed with music and laughter, the smell of barbecue drifting through town. Callie moved from table to table, greeting guests, handing out plates, and checking on the children running between parked bikes. Her heart swelled, watching the once suspicious townsfolk smiling and shaking Jax's hand. It felt like something holy was happening. Small, but real. When the mayor stopped by to drop a folded check into the donation jar, Jax looked down at Callie and whispered, "Looks like we did all right." She smiled. "You did more than all right. You gave them hope." "Couldn't have done it without you," he said. Her cheeks warmed. "You'd have figured it out." Roscoe bellowed from behind the grill. "Hey, we need someone to sing! Can't have a rally without music!" Callie froze. "Oh no, not me." "Yes, you," Red said, clapping his hands. "Come on, darlin', let that voice out." People began to cheer lightly, urging her on. She looked at Jax, uncertain. He gave a small nod. "You got this." Her hands trembled as she stepped to the small stage Red had built from old pallets. The microphone squeaked. Then, softly at first, she began to sing, "Abide with Me." The crowd quieted. The children stopped running. Her voice, gentle and sure, rose through the clear afternoon air, sweet, trembling, and full of grace. Jax stood still, his throat tightening. The song carried something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. When the last note faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the lot. Roscoe whispered, "Well, I'll be an angel in an apron." Callie's eyes met Jax's. For a long second, the world seemed to still. He nodded once, the smallest gesture of respect, and she felt something deep inside her heal a little. The sun dipped low as folks packed up their plates, hugging and laughing. Callie stood near the garage door, heart full. "This feels like a beginning," she said. Jax looked out at the fading light. Maybe it is. Neither of them saw the dark van parked down the road, or the man watching from behind its windshield, his jaw clenched, his eyes cold with envy. The peace that filled the day was about to break. The rally had ended with laughter, but by nightfall the air felt strange. Too quiet, too heavy. The last of the guests had gone home, leaving paper cups and muddy footprints in the lot. Callie and Jax cleaned up side by side, tired but happy. The baby kicked now and then, and she smiled, feeling the pulse of new life in a place that had once only known loss. "Did you ever think it would turn out this good?" she asked softly. Jax shook his head. "Not once. Guess miracles like to sneak up on folks." She chuckled. "Maybe they do." He carried trash to the dumpster, and she gathered napkins off the tables. The moonlight made the garage sign glow like silver. Everything seemed perfect, until the roar of engines shattered the calm. Headlights cut across the lot. 3 black vans rolled in fast, tires spitting gravel. Jax froze. "That's not right," he muttered. Before Callie could speak, the first door slammed open. Men in dark jackets spilled out. Sheriff's deputies and plainclothes officers shouting, "Police! Nobody move!" Callie gasped as red and blue lights exploded across the diner walls. Jax raised his hands. "What's this about?" "Search warrant," Sheriff Wade barked, stepping forward. "We got a tip you're storing stolen parts and contraband in that garage." "That's a lie," Jax said, calm but sharp. "You know it." Wade's eyes were hard. "We'll see." He motioned, and officers began tearing through the garage, throwing open toolboxes and shelves. Callie stood frozen near the door, trembling. "He didn't do anything!" she cried. "Ma'am, step back!" a deputy snapped. But then one of the officers shouted, "We found something!" He held up a small bag from behind a workbench, white powder inside. Jax's jaw dropped. "That's not mine." The sheriff didn't even look at him. "Reckless, Maddox. Real reckless." Callie's breath came in gasps. "You're wrong. Someone planted that." Wade turned toward her, his voice cold. "Ma'am, if you care about that baby, you'll stay quiet." The words cut deep. She watched helplessly as they handcuffed Jax, shoving him towards the cruiser. "You can't take him!" she shouted, stepping forward. He looked back once, meeting her eyes. "Don't be scared," he said softly. "Storms don't last forever." And then the door slammed, and the sirens faded into the distance, leaving Callie standing in the flashing lights, one hand over her belly, whispering his words into the wind. But that night, the storm had only just begun. The jail cell was cold and dim, the air thick with the smell of rain-soaked concrete. Jax sat on the narrow cot, his hands clasped, staring at the cracks in the floor. Every sound echoed, the clang of a distant door, the low murmur of voices down the hall. He'd been in cells before, but never like this. This time he wasn't angry. He was afraid, not for himself, but for Callie. He could still see her face when they took him away, the way her hand went to her belly, as if she could shield the child from all the ugliness in the world. He bowed his head and whispered, "Lord, I don't deserve your help, but she does. Watch over her. Watch over that baby." Across town, Callie sat in a hospital bed, pale and trembling. The shock had sent her into early labor. Machines beeped softly as nurses rushed around her. The pain came sharp, stealing her breath, but she bit her lip and prayed through it. "Please, not now," she whispered. "Please, God, don't take her from me, too." Outside, rain hammered against the window. Big Red burst into the sheriff's office, soaked to the bone, waving a flash drive. "You got the wrong man," he growled. "That footage shows Viper's crew sneaking into the garage an hour before the raid. They planted that junk." Sheriff Wade's jaw tightened. He looked at the screen, then cursed under his breath. "Release Maddox." Minutes later, the cell door opened. Jax stood slowly, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "Red?" Red clapped him on the shoulder. "She's in the hospital, brother. Go." Jax didn't hesitate. He ran through the rain, helmet in hand, engine roaring to life. The night blurred past him, thunder chasing his wheels. He had lost one life to guilt. He wasn't about to lose another to fear. Jax burst through the hospital doors, rain dripping from his jacket, his boots leaving muddy prints across the white floor. "Callie Winters," he gasped to the nurse at the desk. "Where is she?" "Room 12, the nurse said. "But sir, she's in recovery. The baby—" He didn't wait. He ran down the hallway, heart pounding louder than his footsteps. When he pushed open the door, the world seemed to stop. Callie lay pale and still, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes half open. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in pink. For a terrifying second, the room was silent. Then a soft, fragile cry filled the air. Thin but alive. Jax's knees nearly buckled. He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "She's breathing." Callie smiled weakly. "They said she almost didn't." He reached out, touching the baby's small hand. It curled around his finger. "She's a fighter," he said. "Her name's Hope," Callie whispered. "Because that's what you gave me." He swallowed hard, tears sliding down his face. "No, Callie, you gave that to yourself." She smiled faintly. "You came back." "I always will." The nurse peeked in, smiling, softly at the sight. The outlaw and the widow, their hands joined over a new life. Outside, the rain finally stopped. The clouds broke open, and sunlight streamed through the window, falling across Callie's face and the baby's tiny breath. For the first time, peace filled the room completely. Weeks passed, and spring settled over the mountains. The old garage came alive again. Fresh paint, new tools, laughter echoing through open doors. Veterans stopped by to lend a hand. Single mothers brought cars that finally ran again, and Roscoe's diner stayed busy next door. Callie helped with the books while rocking baby Hope nearby, her laughter filling the air like music. Jax wiped his hands on a rag, watching the sunlight spill across the sign, Faith Garage. He smiled, quiet and content. For once, he wasn't fixing broken engines. He was rebuilding lives. A year later, the diner and the Faith Garage stood side by side, alive with laughter and light. The townsfolk who once whispered now smiled when they passed. Callie's garden bloomed bright against the mountain wind, and Baby Hope's laughter carried through the open doors. That Sunday, the church bells rang clear across the valley. Callie walked down the aisle in a simple white dress, her cheeks flushed with joy. Roscoe held Hope in the front row, whispering proudly, "That's our girl." At the altar, Jax waited, his leather vest freshly cleaned, a new patch stitched across the back, saved by grace. When she reached him, he took her hands gently, his rough voice trembling. "You sure about this, ma'am?" She smiled through happy tears. "I've been sure since the storm." The pastor's words were short and sweet. When the vows were spoken, Jax kissed her softly, and the crowd erupted in applause. Even Sheriff Wade tipped his hat, eyes lowered with quiet respect. Outside, sunlight poured over them as Jax helped her onto his Harley. A tiny seat sat behind him, baby Hope bundled safely inside. "Ready, Mrs. Maddox?" he asked. She laughed, the sound ringing like the church bells behind them. "Always." The engine roared to life, and together they rode toward the mountains, 3 souls bound by mercy, faith, and the kind of love that outlasts any storm. Thank you for listening. Stories connect us in the most unexpected ways. If you felt that spark today, make sure you're subscribed. I share a new one daily, and the next might change your day.